There was a moment when the NBA stopped asking if Michael Jordan could be beaten and started asking how much damage he would do before the game was over. By the early 90s, this wasn't basketball anymore. It was survival. Coaches didn't design game plans to win. They designed them to limit the embarrassment. Defenders weren't trying to stop Jordan. They were trying to avoid being remembered forever. Because once Jordan entered his prime, something terrifying happened to the league. He stopped reacting. He stopped adjusting. He stopped caring how you played. He decided how the night would go before tip-off. The scoreboard didn't matter. The crowd didn't matter. The matchup didn't matter. If Michael Jordan decided you were the problem, the game became personal. And this is the part of his prime most people misunderstand. It wasn't just scoring titles. It wasn't just rings. It wasn't just highlights. It was psychological ownership. Entire teams walked onto the floor already defeated because they had seen what happened to the last team that tried to challenge him. Veterans lost confidence. Young stars lost belief. Franchises lost years. And the scariest part, Jordan wasn't emotional. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even loud. He was calm. Because prime Michael Jordan didn't play to win games. He played to end arguments. And once this switch flipped, the league never recovered the same way again. If you love deep NBA documentaries like this, stories that go beyond highlights, make sure you're subscribed. This Prime series only works if you don't miss the next chapter, when the league lost control. By the time Michael Jordan entered his true prime, the NBA was no longer competing on equal ground. The league still looked normal from the outside. The arenas were full. The schedules were packed. The rivalries were marketed as alive and well. But underneath all of it, something had shifted permanently. Players felt it. Coaches knew it. Front offices whispered about it in closed rooms. The balance of power was gone. What made Jordan's prime different wasn't that he scored more, jumped higher, or worked harder. Plenty of players did those things. What separated him was that he began controlling the entire environment of the game, mentally, emotionally, and strategically, before the ball was even tipped. This wasn't domination through chaos. This was domination through inevitability. Opponents didn't ask, "Can we beat Michael Jordan?" They asked, "How long can we hold on before he decides it's over?" That question alone changed everything, because once a league starts asking when instead of if, the battle is already lost. Jordan didn't need to announce his intentions. He didn't need to talk trash every night. He didn't need to put on a show. His reputation did the work for him. The memory of what he had done to others became a weapon as powerful as any crossover or fadeaway. Teams studied film obsessively, searching for patterns. They saw the same thing over and over again. Whenever a game felt close, whenever confidence began to build, whenever someone believed they had momentum, Jordan erased it. Not with theatrics, with precision. He understood something few athletes ever grasp. Basketball wasn't just about possessions. It was about belief. And belief, once broken, never fully returns. The early warning signs were already there before the championships stacked up, before the 6 rings, before the mythology hardened into legend. Jordan had always been competitive, but prime Jordan was something else entirely. He stopped playing against defenses and started playing against identities, against reputations, against egos. If a defender was known as tough, Jordan attacked him first. If a team prided itself on defense, Jordan dismantled it publicly. If a city believed it had the answer, Jordan exposed the lie. And once exposed, that team carried the damage forward. This is where the league lost control. because no rule book prepares you for a player who turns preparation itself into a disadvantage. The more opponents studied him, the more predictable they became. Jordan noticed everything. Who flinched after a missed shot? Who avoided eye contact after a turnover? Who stopped calling for the ball in big moments? He cataloged weaknesses quietly, patiently, and then deployed them at the exact moment they mattered most. And when that moment came, it never looked rushed. That's what unsettled people. He wasn't frantic. He wasn't desperate. He wasn't chasing greatness. He expected it. By the early 90s, Jordan no longer needed to prove he belonged. That argument was over. The real question had shifted to something far more dangerous. How far is he willing to go? The answer scared people, because Prime Jordan didn't just want to win. He wanted to own the memory of the night. He wanted opponents to replay moments in their heads long after the final buzzer. He wanted doubt to linger. Players would say it later, sometimes quietly, sometimes publicly. Games against Jordan felt heavier. Every mistake felt amplified. Every missed rotation felt final. And once he sensed that pressure settling in, Jordan leaned into it. Not louder, not faster, colder. He slowed the game down. He let possessions breathe. He allowed opponents just enough hope to keep them engaged. And then he took it away in the most demoralizing way possible, by making it look easy. This is something statistics never capture. There's a difference between losing to a great player and losing because that player decided it was time. Jordan's prime lived in that space. Coaches began altering rotations early. Stars were benched sooner than usual. Defensive schemes grew more conservative. Nobody wanted to be the one who woke him up. That phrase, woke him up, became common for a reason. Everyone knew what happened next. Once Jordan felt disrespected, challenged, or bored, the game stopped being about execution and became about punishment. And punishment came in waves. A steal that led to a fast break, a stare after a made basket, a slow jog back on defense that somehow felt louder than trash talk. Jordan didn't celebrate. He didn't need to. The silence was enough. And here's the part most people miss when they talk about Prime Jordan. This wasn't instinct. It was trained. Jordan engineered his prime the same way an elite strategist builds leverage. He manufactured pressure where none existed. He created enemies where none were necessary. He assigned meaning to slights nobody else noticed. Why? Because emotion sharpened him. And once he realized that, he stopped waiting for motivation. He created it. A look from an opposing bench, a quote in a newspaper, a defensive assignment that felt disrespectful. Jordan took these fragments and turned them into fuel. Not explosive fuel, controlled fuel. By the time the game started, the outcome was already written in his mind. That's what separated Prime Jordan from every other superstar. Others reacted to the moment. Jordan authored it, and the league felt it slipping away. Stars who were confident against everyone else hesitated against him. They deferred. They passed up shots they normally took. They played not to lose. The worst possible mindset against someone who thrived on hesitation. Jordan smelled fear instantly. He didn't rush it. He waited. A missed free throw, a defensive miscommunication, a timeout where the body language changed. Then he struck, not with a flurry, with certainty. One basket, then another, then a defensive stop that felt symbolic. And suddenly the run was unstoppable, not because of athleticism, but because the opponent had already accepted the outcome. This is how the NBA lost control of its own narrative, because when one player becomes the psychological center of the league, everything else bends around him. Schedules revolved around Jordan games. TV ratings spiked because of Jordan nights. Young players measured themselves against Jordan and often failed before the game even began. The league marketed rivalries aggressively, but the truth was uncomfortable. There was no rivalry. There was Jordan. And then there was everyone else trying to survive his prime. And survival was never guaranteed. By this point, Jordan wasn't chasing history. History was chasing him. The league tried to adjust. More physical play, more defensive pressure, more help defense. But all it did was confirm what everyone already knew. Nothing worked for long. Jordan adapted faster than the league could respond. He added patience to his aggression. He replaced force with finesse when necessary. And when finesse stopped working, he went right back to force. This flexibility terrified opponents because it meant there was no right answer. Whatever you chose, Jordan punished. And as this pattern repeated night after night, season after season, something irreversible happened. The league stopped believing it could control the outcome. Games still mattered. Series still mattered. Championships still mattered. But Prime Jordan existed above all of it, as the constant. And once the NBA accepted that reality, the rest became procedural. This was no longer a question of talent. It was a question of how long resistance would last. And the answer was getting shorter. Quick reminder. This channel is building the most complete Prime era breakdowns on YouTube. If you're still watching, you're exactly who this is for. When the league finally broke, by the time the NBA realized what Michael Jordan had become in his prime, it was already too late to stop him. The league didn't break in one night. It didn't collapse in one finals. It didn't surrender after one iconic shot. It broke slowly, then all at once. At first, teams convinced themselves that Jordan's dominance had limits, that fatigue would catch up, that age would soften him, that systems, schemes, or physicality would eventually grind him down. That belief was comforting and completely wrong, because Prime Jordan didn't slow down. He tightened. He eliminated wasted motion. He eliminated emotional swings. He eliminated mercy. What looked like maturity on the surface was something colder underneath. He stopped playing the game the way everyone else did. Most superstars respond to pressure with urgency. Jordan responded with control. The louder the environment, the quieter he became. The tighter the game, the more deliberate his movements. Opponents felt it immediately. Late in games, when adrenaline usually took over, Jordan's pulse seemed to drop. His breathing slowed. His decision-making sharpened. That alone destabilized teams, because basketball isn't just physical, it's rhythmic. Players feed off tempo. They rely on emotional cues, momentum swings, crowd energy, urgency. Jordan refused all of it. He didn't speed up when crowds roared. He didn't rush when defenders closed in. He didn't force shots to match the moment. He absorbed the moment and bent it to his will. This is when opponents started to crack. Not visibly, not dramatically, but internally. Defenders began guessing instead of reacting. Coaches started overthinking rotations. Stars pressed, trying to make something happen before Jordan did. And that's exactly what he wanted. Because Prime Jordan understood a brutal truth. The first team to panic always loses. So he waited. He let teams burn energy chasing answers that didn't exist. He allowed them to believe they were close enough to keep pushing, close enough to keep hope alive. And then he shut the door. Sometimes it came with a scoring run. Sometimes it came with a defensive stand. Sometimes it came with a single possession that broke morale, a steal, a block, a contested jumper that silenced the building. Jordan didn't celebrate these moments. He didn't need to. The reaction told him everything. Heads dropped. Timeouts were called too late. Benches went quiet. This wasn't just winning. This was emotional domination. And the league began to internalize it. Players talked about it years later, about how games against Jordan felt different before tip-off, about how you could sense the pressure in warm-ups, about how every mistake felt heavier, because you knew he wouldn't waste yours. That awareness changed behavior. Teams became cautious. Stars became conservative. Aggression turned into hesitation, and hesitation was fatal. Jordan punished hesitation more than mistakes. A missed shot could be recovered. A late rotation could be corrected. But doubt lingered. Once Jordan sensed it, he went straight at it. He attacked the defender who looked unsure. He demanded switches onto players who didn't want the assignment. He slowed possessions just long enough for uncertainty to settle in. And when the defense finally reacted, it was already too late. This is how the league broke. Not because Jordan overwhelmed it physically, but because he exposed its psychological limits. Coaches ran film endlessly. They identified tendencies. They planned counters. Jordan absorbed all of it. By this point in his prime, he knew defensive coverages better than some coaches. He recognized rotations before they happened. He baited defenders into making the right play, then punished them for it. Help defense. He passed at the last possible moment. Single coverage. He dismantled it patiently. Double teams. He welcomed them. There was no correct answer. And once that realization spread, the fear deepened. The NBA had faced dominant players before. Kareem, Magic, Bird, Shaq. But Prime Jordan was different. Those players imposed their greatness within the structure of the game. Jordan rewrote the structure. Games stopped feeling competitive and started feeling inevitable. Series stopped being about strategy and started being about endurance. How long could you survive before Jordan decided the story was over? And when he decided, it ended quickly. This inevitability changed how teams approached entire seasons. Regular season wins against Jordan became moral victories. Close losses were reframed as progress. Teams measured success not by beating him, but by not being embarrassed. That's not competition. That's submission. And Jordan felt it. He recognized when opponents were playing not to lose instead of playing to win. He recognized when teams settled for respect instead of dominance. And he despised it. Because Prime Jordan didn't want respect. He wanted compliance. That's why he raised his standards even higher. Practice intensity increased. Expectations hardened. Teammates were pushed beyond comfort. Jordan wasn't cruel for the sake of cruelty. He was ruthless in pursuit of certainty. He believed championships were decided long before the finals, in habits, in preparation, in the willingness to endure discomfort daily. And he demanded that standard from everyone around him. Those who met it thrived. Those who didn't were discarded. This internal pressure mirrored what he applied externally. Opponents felt suffocated because Jordan had already suffocated everything weak within his own environment. By the peak of his prime, Jordan didn't chase moments. Moments chased him. The league marketed new challengers every year, new stars, new threats, new narratives. None of it mattered, because Jordan's prime wasn't built on matchups. It was built on inevitability. He didn't need to outscore everyone every night. He didn't need to dominate statistically. He just needed to be present. Because presence alone altered behavior. Defenders overcommitted. Shooters rushed. Coaches shortened rotations prematurely. Jordan never rushed. He watched the collapse unfold. And when the final resistance appeared, when a team believed just for a moment that it had found the answer, Jordan ended it personally, not loudly, not theatrically, decisively. A sequence, a look, a possession that erased belief. And once belief died, everything followed. The NBA didn't announce its surrender, it showed it. In how teams played him differently, in how stars spoke about him cautiously, in how narratives shifted from rivalry to legacy. By the end of his prime, Jordan wasn't competing against peers. He was competing against history. And history never stood a chance. Because prime Jordan didn't just dominate the league, he taught it what domination felt like. And once you learn that feeling, you never forget it. The NBA moved forward, but it was never the same. The night resistance ended. There is always a final moment in every era. Not the loudest moment, not the most replayed, not even the most dramatic on the surface, but the moment when everyone, players, coaches, front offices, fans, silently accepts the same truth. This is over. For the NBA, that moment came quietly. Not with a dynasty announcement, not with a press conference, not with a single shot frozen in time. It came when teams stopped asking if Michael Jordan could be beaten and started asking how long they could survive him. That shift mattered more than any trophy, because competition doesn't die when you lose. It dies when belief does. And belief died in Jordan's prime on a night that looked ordinary, until it wasn't. The building was loud but not nervous. The opponent was confident but not reckless. The game was close but not chaotic. Everything felt normal. That's what made it terrifying, because Jordan wasn't playing emotionally anymore. He wasn't feeding off noise. He wasn't hunting moments. He was executing an ending. Early in the game, defenders tried to test him. Physical contact, quick doubles, early help. The usual tactics teams convinced themselves might still work. Jordan absorbed it without reaction. No complaints, no stares, no rush. Just information. By the second quarter, the defense adjusted. Fewer doubles, more discipline. Make him work. Make him pass. Jordan obliged. He passed. He facilitated. He waited. This is where resistance usually feels strongest. When a team believes it's still controlling the flow. When the star hasn't exploded yet. When the score stays close enough to feel hopeful. But that hope was an illusion. Because prime Jordan wasn't trying to win quarters anymore. He was mapping people who hesitated on closeouts, who avoided switches, who stopped talking on defense when possessions went long. Jordan saw it all. And when the third quarter arrived, the tone shifted. Not dramatically, subtly. A possession here where he attacked the weakest defender. A pull-up there that punished space that shouldn't exist. A defensive stand that turned urgency into panic. The crowd felt it before the scoreboard showed it. The opponent felt it before the run started. This wasn't momentum. This was compression. Jordan was squeezing the game tighter, reducing margin, forcing perfection from players who had never lived there before. Mistakes multiplied. A rushed pass, a missed rotation, a shot taken too early. Not because it was open, but because the player didn't want the ball anymore. Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He raised the stakes. And then came the stretch, the one everyone remembers, even if they don't realize why. The score was close enough to matter. The clock was low enough to hurt, and the opponent still believed, just barely. Jordan demanded the ball. Not with urgency, with certainty. The defender squared up, and for a moment, a very brief moment, resistance flickered. Then Jordan went to work. One move, one counter, one shot that looked inevitable the instant it left his hands. No celebration, just a jog back. The next possession, he did it again. Different angle. Same result. This wasn't scoring. This was demonstration. Every possession said the same thing. You can guard me perfectly, and it still won't matter. That's when the bench changed. Players stopped standing, coaches stopped gesturing. Timeouts came too late or not at all. You could see it in their eyes. They weren't calculating anymore. They were enduring. And endurance is not a winning strategy. The final minutes didn't feel competitive. They felt ceremonial, like the last steps of a process already decided. Jordan controlled pace like a conductor slowing the orchestra before the final note. He took time off the clock. He attacked mismatches deliberately. He defended with precision, not aggression. Nothing wasted. Nothing rushed. When the final buzzer sounded, there was no shock, only confirmation. Opponents shook hands, knowing something deeper than a loss had occurred. They hadn't been outplayed. They had been outgrown. This wasn't just another Jordan win. This was the night the league stopped pretending. Stopped pretending matchups mattered. Stopped pretending schemes would save them. Stopped pretending effort alone could close the gap. From that point forward, everything changed. Teams adjusted goals. Stars adjusted expectations. Front offices adjusted timelines. Because Prime Jordan didn't just win championships. He compressed eras. He shortened careers. He delayed legacies. He forced greatness to wait its turn. And the league accepted it. That acceptance, that quiet understanding, was the real ending. Not the trophies, not the highlights, not the banners. The ending was psychological. The night resistance ended wasn't the night Jordan proved he was the best. That had already happened. It was the night everyone else admitted the truth they'd been avoiding. Prime. Michael Jordan wasn't something you beat. He was something you survived. And most didn't. That's what prime really meant. Not dominance, inevitability. If you felt that ending, you already know. Subscribe. Prime doesn't repeat itself, but the next story is already coming. We've been turning the Prime series into limited edition wall art, designed to capture this era, this mindset, this dominance. If you're watching on TV, the link is in the video description. You can also check the pinned comment